Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. In this episode, we're going to talk about this week's episode of Legends of Tomorrow. So in this episode, we find our heroes crash landed in the year 2046, specifically Star City, but the city isn't the way they, saw it as it was in 2016. The city is actually pretty much destroyed. And the group comes across the Green Arrow. But sadly for Sarah, Kendra, as well as Ray, it is not the Green Arrow that they've come to know. It's a new person. And eventually Sarah asks this new Green Arrow exactly what happened. And where's Oliver? And this new Green Arrow tells her that Oliver Queen died. And that the entire city was overrun by a certain villain. And that certain villain quickly reveals himself to be Deathstroke. But not really Deathstroke. He's actually Deathstroke's son. So, yeah. But we soon quickly find out that Oliver isn't actually dead. He's just been beaten down and broken. Both physically and mentally. Physically because he lost one of his arms. Apparently Deathstroke Jr. cut his arm off at some point. But he's mainly beaten down because everyone he knew is gone. At least that's what he told Sarah. What that exactly means, it's not 100% clarified. Sarah's like, wait, what do you mean? He's like, they're gone. So whether that means everyone that they know is dead or not, I don't know. That's up for debate. It could easily just be him meaning like they left, or it could mean they're dead. I don't know. I guess really that's up for you to really decide. And except for one person, and we know he's dead, and that's Diggle, because this new Green Arrow is actually Diggle's son, John Jr., but he doesn't, because he couldn't save his dad, he abandoned, he's like, I don't deserve my dad's name. So he starts going by the name Connor, who, interestingly enough, in case you didn't know, Connor is basically kind of, I think, at one point in the comic books, he's the future Green Arrow. It's kind of sort of like the whole Batman Beyond situation where you have Terry replacing Bruce as Batman. I'm sure there's other versions of Batman where Bruce gets replaced by someone else, but Batman Beyond's the only one I'm familiar with like that. So it's kind of a similar situation like that, except in the comic books, Connor is actually Oliver's son, but in this case, he ends up being John's son. So that's that. But the entire time, Sarah wants to, try and help save this future, but Rip keeps constantly telling her this isn't a set future for your world. The future is very malleable and it could change just at any moment, at any second. So no future is 100% set in stone. So they could easily just leave there, finish their mission, to destroy Vandal Savage and end up getting them back to the past to set things right. Because Oliver said that basically they fought Deathstroke to, save the city, obviously, but it's like it wasn't enough. Maybe if Ray and Sarah were there, maybe it would have evened the odds. Which, granted, I feel like that's a little crappy on Oliver's part to kind of put that on Sarah. Like, yeah, it's because you two went off to, save the future and all that we end up losing. It's like, there's no guarantee that would have stopped things from happening. Maybe it would have, maybe it's not. I just feel like that's a little crappy for him to kind of put that on her like that. But nevertheless. And, because Rip and Sarah kind of go back and forth about the whole thing, because she's like, no, this is still my home. Whether it's a future that can be changed or whatever, like basically she was kind of saying like the lives here matter. It might be something we can go back in time and change it, and there's no 100% guarantee either that we can change it, but we are here right now, so let's help fight back and take the city back. She even went as far as kind of throwing Rip's family into this situation, because she's like, oh, you want to change the future to save your family, but you won't let me try and save this future where like people that are important to me are suffering. And which Rip gets super pissed. He's like, don't you dare try and make it seem like I'm the selfish one. You're the selfish one. I'm not just trying to save my family. I'm trying to save the whole bloody future. So, but they end up, kind of resolving their issues because they end up joining together when Connor gets kidnapped later in the episode. They join together and rescue him, along with Oliver as well, because Sarah kind of talked Oliver into, suiting up one more time. Some very interesting things in this episode is the Heatwave and Captain Cold relationship. Basically, Mick is loving the future as it is in 2046. He loves this place. It's just chaotic and just destruction all around, and he loves it. Captain Cold isn't feeling it as much as Mick is. For Snart, it's like, I don't know. To me, it feels like Snart has started to change a lot ever since, this journey started. He's progressively started to change, and, he tells this to Mick later on. It's like, once we beat Savage, you know what that means? We'll come back. We'll be, like, on top of the world. We'll be, like, the best of the best. And Mick's like, I don't care about that. It's like, because I guess in his mindset, he's kind of like, in his mind, he's like, you're kind of playing too much into this hero business. You're a criminal. We're both criminals. You're my partner. Yet you're up here enjoying this life like, you're living the high life like some kind of hero. We're criminals, And I'm thinking also a big factor in all of this too is the fact is that Mick himself has always played second fiddle. He's always been the brawn to Snart's brains, and he's always played second fiddle. He's always had to listen to other people. This particular place was a chance for him to, it's like, be the leading man, in the situation, have his own group that, he can take charge of and just lead and just steal and destroy as much as his heart can, content. There was even a line where Mick is like, you know what I want, Snart. And you know what that thing is, more than anything else in the world that I want. And Snart was like, to see the world burn. And Mick was like, yeah. And if you touch me again, essentially saying, if you get in my way again, I'll burn you too. It was just like, whew. So that partnership is kind of a little rocky right now. They set aside their differences a little bit just because they needed to save Connor, but no telling what the future holds. Wink, wink, ha ha ha. Made a time joke. Ha ha, I'm so clever. And another very interesting thing that came up in this episode is apparently Jax has feelings for Kendra. Which, I don't know, it never seemed like that was hinted at, but it just kind of popped up in this episode because he actually started getting a little jealous of Ray because Ray starts spending a little time with Kendra, and they're just all buddy and actually laughing and kind of being a little flirtatious, I guess. So he's getting a little jealous about it. I mean, because to him, Ray is terrible competition because Ray is a very smart, very wealthy person, and then on top of Ray, he has to contend with, Carter. Even though Carter's not around, Carter is the love of her life and has been for the past 4,000 years. So it's kind of hard to compete with that as well. But, Stein kind of does a cool thing and kind of steps into a fatherly role, and he gives Jax advice. He's like, you don't need to be extremely smart or whatever to impress her. Just be confident. And I like how in the episode he does try to play Cupid a little bit. He kind of tries to, in his words, slyfully discern whether Ray has feelings for Kendra or not. Which Ray's like, well, no, not really. I've never really thought about it. And the Stein was like, oh, okay. But because of Stein's conversation with Ray, it ended up making him go like, you know what? It's kind of opened my eyes up. Kendra is a very sweet, kind of bubbly person. So, yeah, why not give it a try? Which Stein's like, holy crap. And a very interesting thing about Stein and Jack's relationship, since I'm talking about Stein, is that we see like more of their connection. That they can actually connect to each other on an emotional level now. Like when Jax was getting jealous of Ray and Kendra, Stein ended up snapping. It's like, could you, Mr. Palmer and Kendra, could you please get back to work? And it's like, why am I getting so upset about it? And then he realized it's like, oh, Jax, you're the reason why. And then later on, it happens vice versa, where Jax enters the room. This is after Stein's little Cupid act gets Ray to kind of admit that he might have feelings for Kendra. He enters the room, and then like Stein starts talking to him, and Jackson's like, well, what's wrong? He's like, what do you mean what's wrong? He's like, I'm feeling this feeling of anxiety and guilt coming from you. So I thought that was pretty funny. But in that situation we have but at the end of it, Ray kind of was like, asking Kendra out, but Kendra was like, there's this whole situation, this whole like being a Hulk goddess, life is complicated. Plus, the whole Carter thing. She's not in a position to be in a relationship right now. And Ray was like, he understood. And him and Jax kind of bonded over the fact is that they both like her, because Ray was like, oh yeah, so kind of I feel sorry for. He's like, Jax is like, yo, I'm sorry. He's like, yeah, I'm sorry for you too. And he's like, well, you knew? He's like, yeah, you were pretty obvious about it. And he makes a wisecrack saying, but don't worry, she would have chosen me. And Jax is like, yeah, right. So that was very nice. I really like this group of characters, and I do. Something that people constantly bring up is the fact is that the switching back and forth between partnering up characters, and I really like getting to see the relationships between all these different characters that kind of know each other, like because you have Jax and you have Stein, and they've been together for a little while, but we're actually getting to see that relationship develop in front of our eyes. All these other characters are strangers to one another. We're even seeing, with the exceptions of certain characters, but we have, like, even Mick and Snart, their relationship is developing over this journey as well. Because we saw Mick kind of develop a little bit more, because, like, was an episode or two ago, because the whole situation with, inside that prison in Russia, where we see him kind of open up a little bit more towards Ray. He kind of took a liking to Ray, so... But that's about all I really want to talk about for this episode. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.